John chapter 13, verse 34. A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also are to love one another. Okay, this is what does Jesus mean here? I had this discussion as well recently concerning love. Love, I mean God and Ten Commandments, and in the New Testament it's like the first and the second command is love your Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And while in the Old Testament there's 10 commandments, and the question is why such a focus on love here and the 10 commandments not. I just tried to explain that it's not a question of even in the Old Testament that love was not. Even in the Old Testament it was stated that you ought to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and strength. So it is not this idea of then Jesus speaking here of love, a new commandment he's giving of love. It's not so much that this is therefore new in the sense that the Old Testament or the Ten Commandments was just all about laws that you need to do. But if you go and you look at the answer, the question and answer to Jesus, he said, even the Old Testament, even those laws is love the Lord your God with all your name. I already just now said, even the Old Testament is stated like that. Because we know the first 4 commandments has to do with our relationship with God, and the next 6 will the relationship with others. And ultimately, if you love God, then God will be the only one. And if you love your neighbor, then you're not going to cheat on him. You're not going to kill him, bear false witness to him, want his stuff, etc., etc. Right? So, I mean, that is kind of what it means when you love someone. So it is not as if Jesus, in the sense, therefore, is giving now this totally different kind of, but he is just embodying all of this, right? What has he been doing in this chapter? He washed the feet of his disciples, he served them, and he told them that they need to do likewise. What was the water ultimately about? What was this whole thing? It was an example of the way he is serving them. And how is he going to serve them ultimately? Yes, washing the feet. But washing the feet is nothing compared to the dying part that he's going to do. In that he showed true love, that he is willing to die. So what he is therefore getting at with this commandment is that we ought to be willing to serve each other, with serving each other, meaning willing to die for each other. You need to be, in the church, this is how it ought to be, in this new command, because we now have, unlike under the old system, we didn't see it. They were expecting Jesus. They didn't understand all of that, right? But now, with Jesus coming and Jesus washing now the feet, and then Jesus dying on the cross, he is embodying what serving means, what love truly means. That is what is love, not like make love or stuff like that. That's not love. That is just feelings. It's such a waste of the term love, unluckily. Right? Loving means your willingness to give yourself fully to the other person or to other people. And that's how it's supposed to be. Instead of always holding back, we need to be willing to serve in the same way that Jesus served. And not by washing feet, but by willing to die. That is the new commandment that Jesus is giving. And so in a sense it's not new, but in a sense now we can see it, we can understand it. It's embodied in the person of Jesus. It is so much more than just don't do this, don't do that. This is the other side of it. This is give yourself, right? So the don'ts, not even in picture in a certain sense, because if you are willing to give yourself, then you won't do those other things. I hope you understand. I mean, like, so the do's and don'ts is like, say, level 1. Okay? This is like the top level you can get. Okay? Because if you do this, then all those other things is underneath this love that comes here. In that sense, therefore, it is new. So it's included in, it's just a small part of, ultimate, your willingness to serve each other in such a way that you're willing to die for each other. Verse 35. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Okay, and then by looking at this, other people will be able to tell, but these people really truly are Jesus' disciples because they love one another. How? Not only do they wash the feet, which is the simplest of simple things, right? But they're willing to die for the other person. That's huge. In other religions, people are not willing to die for other people. Yes, so for example, they're willing to die so they can go to heaven and be met with all the virgins. For example, if you're Muslim. So they're dying for a cause, they're dying for what they can get from this. While in Christianity it's different. It's not about dying for what you can get from this, right? In this commandment, it's not dying so that you can, not serve each other so that you can get something. It is serve each other, be willing to die for each other, so that other people can see that you are my disciples. There's a huge difference, right? A huge difference between, therefore, this commandment and the commandments as it's seen in other religions, how it's worked out. Okay? In all religions, people do good because they're taught. They do good, they get a better karma, they come back as something better, or they do good and then as well they have a better place there in heaven, or I mean, even Christians tell this. And so that's not why you do good. You do good because Jesus told us to do it. You do good because he said, in this way they'll know that you're my disciples. So that they are knowing you're disciples, they will glorify ultimately the Father. And through that, I'll be glorified. The Spirit will be glorified. God will be glorified. The question always is, do we live therefore like this? I'm not speaking, there's nothing wrong with denominations per se. Okay? It's not as if Jesus is speaking here and people ask, I mean, just look at us, all these different denominations, and that shows that we are far from God. Different denominations is nothing. It is how the different denominations act towards each other, how the people from different denominations act towards each other. Do they treat each other with this kind of love where they are willing to die for, where a Reformed person will be willing to die for a Baptist or for a Pentecostal, vice versa, right? That is more the kind of question. Okay, it's not a question of, okay, if I say something wrong against Baptists, or if I say something wrong against Pentecostals or against Reformed, now I am hating them, or it's it, right? We need to speak out for the truth. We might disagree, but when the pawpaw strike the fan, when the wheel meets the rubber meets the road kind of idea, right? Then we need to be willing, because ultimately they're still a brother and a sister in Christ. Yes, they think different in theology than we do. Yeah, I'm not speaking now of prosperity gospel because that's a different gospel, and anathema to that. If I love them, I will tell them that, right? But they might disagree with certain things. They might interpret speaking in tongues differently than I do. Okay, but when it gets to serving each other, loving each other, then those things kind of disappear, right? Then those things disappear. I think a coconut or something fell into the water here now. So that is ultimately what the loving part is about, right? It's not because their denominations doesn't say that we don't love each other. is that we can love each other, even the same family. Sometimes we fight like mad, but when there's pressure, we love each other. We show we are willing to die for each other. That is how it ought to be in the church. And the question is, do we live this out? Do we live out this love for each other or not?